Tanjiro reflects on how everyone is doing an incredible job defeating the upper moons one by one, getting closer to defeating Muzan. Meanwhile, in the other side we see Mitsuri and Obanai are facing the upper moon 4 Nakimi that already got replaced. Mitsuri attacks, but Nakimi dodges her moves in a way that feels embarrassing. Nakimi tries to separate them, but Mitsuri starts to understand the demon's power. She dodges her and attacks again, but once more, Nakimi dodges her effortlessly. Elsewhere, in the Infinity Castle, Tokido and Himejima are running when suddenly Tokido gets separated from Himejima by Nakami's power, facing alone the strongest of the upper moons, Kokushibo, Upper Moon 1. As Tokido faces the Upper Moon 1 and feels fear for the first time, Kokushibo sees through him and asks for his name. Tokito introduces himself, and Kokushibo reveals that Tokido is his descendant from the Tsugikuni family. Shocked, he quickly controls his fear, impressing Kokushibo, and attacks, but he dodges and taunts him, saying the Tsugikuni name has died, though the bloodline lives on in Tokido. Tokido refuses to accept this, activating his mark and unleashing a new technique that surprises Kokushibo, saying he didn't see it before, so it means he created it by himself. Intrigued, Kokushibo unshields his sword and uses the Breath of the Moon's first form to cut off Tokido's arm. Tokito, shocked to see a demon using a original breath technique, stops the bleeding with his hair and attacks again. Kokushibo, impressed, retaliates by pinning Tokido to the wall with his sword, deciding to turn Tokido into a demon. Kokushibo decides to turn Tokido into a demon and stops his bleeding to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Genya hides nearby, scared, holding his shotgun, but suddenly, Kokushibo appears behind him and cuts off his arm. Genya pulls out his sword to fight, but Kokushibo cuts it too. Knowing Genya has eaten demons before, he slices Genya in half, saying he met someone like him before and killed him in the same way, but Genya is still alive. So Kokushibo thinks he'll die for sure if he cuts off his head like any other demon. Then, the most awaited scene happens. Sanemi arrives, protecting his little brother. He says he killed their mother for Genya's sake, so he could live a peaceful, normal life with a family of his own, and he'll make sure no demons will get in his way. Fueled by rage, Sanemi attacks Kokushibo, dodging his strike and releasing his first form. Kokushibo draws while Sanemi mocks him, calling his blade disgusting. As Sanemi dodges Kokushibo's fifth form, he starts analyzing it. He admits he can't even blink after seeing Kokushibo's speed and power. It's no surprise Tokido lost. Kokushibo is not only a demon, but also a master of both blood demon art and the breath technique, and he heals faster than anyone. Sanemi uses his second form, showing off his flexibility, and Kokushibo notes that Sanemi is at his peak. Their clash continues with intense techniques, but Sanemi starts bleeding, showing he's struggling to keep up. Kokushibo unleashes his sixth form and slashes him badly. Sanemi is left bloody, and Kokushibo warns him not to move or his organs might spill out. But then Kokushibo senses something strange. Sanemi starts talking about his rare blood, which is so powerful it makes demons dizzy and drunk. As Kokushibo begins to feel it, Sanemi charges in for a counterattack. Sanemi first noticed his special blood when his demon mother's movement slowed after hitting him. He realized his blood could weaken demons and decided to hunt them alone with reckless plans and luck. One day, he met Kumano, who introduced him to the Demon Slayer Corps. After Kumano died fighting Lower Moon 1, Sanemi became a Hashira. At first, Sanemi hated the Ubuyashiki family, thinking they just gave orders and stayed safe. But when he met Oyakata-sama, he saw his kindness. Oyakata apologized for Sanemi's loss and said he wished he could fight too, but his illness stopped him. Kanai told Sanemi that Oyakata remembers every demon slayer who died. Shocked, Sanemi received a letter from Kumano, saying he wanted to protect those he loved until the end. Sanemi realized he felt the same way about Genya. Back in battle, Kokushibo drives Sanemi's sword into the ground and aims for his neck. Sanemi tries to use his brother's shotgun, but fails. Just as Kokushibo strikes, Sanemi vanishes, and suddenly, Gyume, the strongest Hashira, arrives. After Gyume enters the battle, Kokushibo smiles, saying he hasn't seen someone like him in 300 years. As he gets serious, the air shifts. He throws his chained weapons with precision, surprising Kokushibo. He struggles to use his moon breathing, while Gyume uses his rock breathing second form, trapping him in chains. Unable to break free, he managed to slip, but his hair gets cut, aimed straight for his neck. But he throws his weapons again, showing incredible control. As Kokushibo thinks, the chains wrap around his sword and snap it in half. Both use their breath techniques, shaking the entire area with power. Kokushibo regenerates, but Gyume gets a slash across his face. He says he wanted to save this power for Muzan, but now he has nothing to lose. His mark appears, and his rage grows even stronger. Tokido breaks free from the sword Kokushibo used to pin him to the wall and stops the bleeding. Genya, still alive, asks him for a piece of Kokushibo's hair that Gyume managed to cut off. As Gyome's mark glows, Kokushibo reflects on how he's probably 27, past the usual death limit of 25 for marked demon slayers. He laments that all his strength and effort will vanish tonight, but Gyome calmly replies that every marked slayer knows this and accepts it. He says how pathetic Kokushibo's opinion is while forcing his worldview on others. Then Gyome says that Kokushibo did lie about one thing, and that there's one exception. Someone once lived past 25 with a mark. Kokushibo seems shaken. Suddenly, he attacks Gyome from behind in rage rage, unleashing wild slashes. Meanwhile, Sanemi finishes healing and awakens his own mark. He jumps into the battle, making it 2 versus 1. Kokushibo is impressed that they use different breaths, but still fight in perfect sync. Tokito helps Genya eat Kokushibo's hair, and he regenerates quickly, feeling the Upper Moon 1 Kokushibo's power surge in his blood. Suddenly, he hears Muzan's voice inside his head. Back in the fight, Kokushibo understands that these two are the strongest Hashira, especially Gyomei. Even blindness doesn't weaken him. Kokushibo tries to break Sanemi's sword first, but Sanemi thrusts it into the ground and cuts off some of his hair. Kokushibo is shocked that Sanemi can still move like that, even after taking all those slashes. Even with the mark, Gyomei joins in and slices off Kokushibo's ear. The two Hashira fight in perfect sync, landing blows using both breath techniques and tearing Kokushibo's kimono. Just as they press forward, slashes appear from nowhere. Kokushibo then reveals his sword's true form and gets serious, declaring that once he kills them, defeating the rest of the Demon Slayers will be easy. As Kokushibo unleashes his sword's true form, he cuts off Sanemi's fingers, and as he panics, fearing he might lose his arms without Gyomei's help, he realizes his rare blood has lost its effect. Meanwhile, Ubuyashiki's daughter asks to send backup, but the boy refuses, trusting them to defeat Upper Moon 1. Back to the fight, Kokushibo unleashes his 7th to 10th forms, nearly killing Sanemi, but Tokito saves him just in time. Genya, panicking, wonders how he can help. Then he remembers Tanjiro's words saying when the strongest clash, they ignore the weakest. Realizing he's unnoticed, Genya takes the chance to shift the battle's outcome. With newfound resolve, Genya makes a bold move. He eats the piece of Kokushibo's sword to help create their path to victory. As the fight with Upper Moon 1 Kokushibo continues, Gyomei starts to panic, asking how fast Kokushibo can unleash his techniques quickly, as if he knows their next moves before even taking them. So he realizes that he might be seeing something others can't. But by observing closely, Gyomei finally unlock the transparent world too, just like Tanjiro and Kokushibo. At that moment, the 3 Hashiras launch a coordinated attack. While Kokushibo prepares to strike back, Gyomei throws a ball, hitting Kokushibo's hand to stop him, while Sanemi distracts him with his wind techniques. Tokito drives his blade into Kokushibo's stomach. At that moment, he realizes that Tokito and Gyomei can now see the transparent world just like him. As he prepares to attack them, Genya appears behind holding a shotgun that looks like Kokushibo's sword, his eyes and mark now similar too. He recalls Tokito's words who ask him to shoot both of them if needed. He starts to panic, but Genya makes his decision and shot them at the end. As Genya shot them both, the bullet pierces Kokushibo. While he realizes Genya's pressure changed, he ate his sword and hair. Suddenly, a tree appears from Kokushibo's body. It's Genya's blood demon art, inherited from his own cells. Frozen in place, he feels something he hasn't in 400 years. Fear. A flashback begins. 400 years ago, under a blood moon, Kokushibo sees his brother Yoriichi again, now an old man, over 80. Shocked, Kokushibo can't understand how a marked swordsman lived past 25, yet he's still alive. Yoriichi, eyes full of sorrow, says it's heart-wrenching, and Kokushibo prepares to strike if Yoriichi draws his blade towards him. But as Yoriichi takes his stance, the air grows heavy. He warns Kokushibo that he's coming, and in one slash, he managed to cut his neck clean through. Kokushibo regenerates, filled with rage. Yoriichi hadn't lost any speed, his power still terrifying even after 80 long years. Kokushibo prepares for the next strike that Kokushibo definitely know it gonna kill him, but it never comes. Yoriichi dies standing, a normal death of old age. After Yoriichi died standing, Kokushibo realized that if Yoriichi had lived just a few more seconds, he would have died. Knowing the strongest swordsman is gone now, he believed no one could defeat him. Back to the battle, he screams, slashing the Hashiras back. Tokito is cut in half like Gojo, and Genya is slashed at the top, and he generate blades all over his body. However, the Hashiras aims for his head, and Tokito's sword turns red, searing Kokushibo's insides. Sanemi pierces his neck as Genya, while dying, uses a blood demon art to hold Kokushibo still. He tries to cut him in half, but his technique fails. Gyumei throws his weapon at his head, but it doesn't work. He screams, dodging Gyumei's second attack with his sword. After that, he realizes his sword techniques aren't coming out because the tree on his back absorbed his blood, and Tokito's red blade that looks like Yoriichi's sword burning him inside. In that moment, Sanemi jumps, using his sword to push Gyumei's weapon down onto Kokushibo's head, as both weapons glow red, and finally, Kokushibo's head is destroyed. After Kokushibo reflects to Yoriichi on how their breathing technique will soon vanish, he remembers how he always smiled, always optimistic, and that's what makes him feel disgust. Back in the fight, after Genya and the Hashira manage to cut off Kokushibo's head, he thinks about how this new generation, without the original sun breathing, still managed to turn their blades red and fight with unorthodox styles. Refusing to lose, he stops his head bleeding. At that moment, Gyumei yells not to let him go, and to continue slashing him until he vanishes, but he regenerates in a monstrous form, thinking he conquers death now, except the sun, as he sees his reflection in Sanemi's blade, realizing how ugly he's become chasing the perfect form. He remembers how Yoriichi wanted to be the second strongest samurai, just behind him. Then, the part where Muichiro stabbed him begins to crumble, while Sanemi and Gyumei attack again, destroying his upper body. Struggling to regenerate, Kokushibo begins to give up, realizing, in the end, all he ever ever wanted was to be like his little brother, Yoriichi. Kokushibo always wanted to be like his twin brother, Yoriichi. At birth, Yoriichi had a strange mark on his head, and their father wanted to kill him, but their mother stopped it. Still, the difference in treatment was clear. Yoriichi lived poorly, yet always stayed close to their mother. One day, Kokushibo gave him a flute, thinking he didn't see him smiling before. Later, while training with a swordmaster, Yoriichi asked to join. The teacher gave him a small wooden sword and showed him the basics. Shockingly, Yoriichi defeated him with just 4 strikes, even though Kokushibo had trained hard and never landed a hit on their master. Yoriichi then said he didn't want to be a samurai. He hated hurting others. When Kokushibo asked how he was so strong, Yoriichi explained to only follows his opponent's bones, muscles, and blood flow, what we now know as the see-through world. At that moment, Kokushibo realized Yoriichi was born with rare talent, his eyes, his mark, but Yoriichi didn't want it. He just wanted to play with his brother. That's when Kokushibo knew the power he desperately wanted was wasted on someone who didn't even want to use it. After Yoriichi defeated their teacher, Kokushibo feared the teacher would report it, and by morning, their father would switch their roles. He started giving up on his dream of becoming the strongest samurai. But at 3 a.m., Yoriichi quietly came to say goodbye, informing him that their mother had passed away and he was leaving now. He showed to Kokushibo the flute he had gifted him long ago, saying it always reminded him of his brother and he'll take care of it all the time, as Kokushibo had given it just like trash, but Yoriichi had treasured it. The next morning, Kokushibo found their mother's diary. He found out that Yoriichi had known of his mother's illness, so he had always stayed by her left side not for comfort but to support and take care of her. As Yoriichi had left that time to protect Kokushibo's position, he continued following his dream. Realizing this, Kokushibo's heart twisted, and from that moment he started hating him, wishing him to disappear forever. After Yoriichi leaves, Kokushibo starts living a peaceful life for 10 years. He gets married and has 2 kids, but he feels bored with this life. One day, Kokushibo and his teammates were attacked by a demon, and Yoriichi appeared, easily defeating the demon. Kokushibo's hate grew again as Yoriichi apologized for being late. However, Kokushibo wanted to be stronger than Yoriichi again, so he abandoned his family and joined the demon hunters. He trained hard, but still couldn't reach Yoriichi's level. When he got the same mark as Yoriichi, he couldn't use the breath of the sun. His technique was named the breath of the moon. Suddenly, all other marked people start dying. Kokushibo knew he didn't have time to catch up, and the golden age of demon hunters will vanish soon. One night, Muzan appears, offering him immortality to perfect his techniques, so he decides to become a demon. Back to the sense when Kokushibo ended Yoriichi's life. He found out that he's still carrying the old flute. He starts crying, realizing that Yoriichi's legacy lives on, while he had abandoned everything, his family, humanity, and dreams. He feels his life was meaningless compared to Yoriichi's enduring his mark and power to Tanjiro, and questioned why he even born hoping for an answer from him. After Kokushibo dies, Himejima orders Sanemi to stop, but he doesn't because he was already passed out. Impressed by his willpower, Himejima moves Sanemi next to Genya, who was cut in half, so Genya could know his brother is alive. He finds Tokito dead, closes his eyes, and promises to defeat Muzan for him so he can rest in peace. In the afterlife, Tokito meets his brother, who cries, calling his death pointless. Tokito cries too, saying he lived happily, fought to protect his friends, and had no regrets. His brother admits he didn't want him to die. Back in the real world, Sanemi wakes up screaming as Genya crumbles away like any demon. Genya confesses his feelings, and Sanemi, crying, says he never hated him and only wanted to protect him. Genya tells him he's the sweetest brother and vanishes. Sanemi screams to God not to take him, while Himejima stands behind him, telling him to raise his head and the fight isn't over until they kill Muzan. After the crow informs Tanjiro and Giyu that Genya and Tokito are dead after defeating the Upper Moon one. Tanjiro cries but keeps running, thinking he knows the dance of the fire. God has 13 forms, yet he only knows 12, but he'll definitely kill Muza using them. Meanwhile, Ubuyashiki's son panics about not making it in time. His sister tells him the swordsman reached Muzan's place and another is close. He orders them to wait for the Hashiras. Elsewhere, the first group reaches Muzan. Suddenly, Muzan appears and slaughters them all. Ubuyashiki's boy screams for backup, but it's too late because all are dead. Muzan mocks him, saying he brought him food to recover and plans to turn him into a demon. He then mocks Tamayo and crushes her head. Yushiro senses it and gets furious. Back to Muzan. He kills the second group too, declaring he will wipe out the demon slayers himself tonight as the night of bloody murder begins. When Muzan came out slashing all the swordsmen, Ubuyashiki's leader froze, feeling the weight of all the deaths, and started blaming himself. One of the girls slapped him, telling him to stay strong and give orders. He quickly ordered everyone to rush to Muzan's place at once. Meanwhile, Obanai and Mitsuri, still fighting, blamed themselves too for not doing anything, as all the Hashiras finished their battles and moved forward. After that, we finally see Tanjiro and Giyu reach Muzan. Tanjiro, filled with rage remembering his family and friends' deaths, wanted to attack, but Giyu ordered him to stay calm. Muzan mocked Tanjiro, saying he should feel lucky to be alive and move on, expecting him to think that just a natural disaster caused his family's death. Yet Tanjiro, shocked, listened as Muzan continued, telling him nothing could bring them back. With rage burning in his eyes, Tanjiro shouted that Muzan was the only thing that should not be allowed to exist. After Tanjiro and Giyu face Muzan in his true form, Tanjiro feels a cold rage in his stomach like never before. He analyzes Muzan's moves, knowing that cutting off his head won't work, as they need to hold him off until sunrise. Suddenly, Muzan attacks with sharp, stretching arms, destroying the place. Tanjiro dodges with pure instinct and luck, trying to get closer, but as he does, Muzan slashes his right eye and tries to finish him. But Giyu grabs him. Muzan mocks them, saying only 3 Hashira are left, and the rest were killed by Upper Moon 4, Nakime. At that moment, we see Obanai and Mitsuri in front of Nakime, dead. Tanjiro pushes Giyu away, saying he doesn't want to risk Giyu's life, but he can't use his breaths properly and gets slammed into a wall. Muzan didn't hesitate as he attacked him. Just then, Mitsuri appears attacking Muzan from behind, and Obanai pulls Tanjiro back, ordering him to not get in the way. Muzan gets furious, screaming to Nakime how they're still alive. At that moment, we see Yushiro behind her, pushing his fingers in her head to control her with his cells, with rage in his eyes, screaming that Muzan's biggest mistake was taking Tamayo away, and swearing he will take revenge from him. As Mitsuri sees how angry Muzan is, she wishes Himejima were there to encourage her. However, we see a flashback where Yushiro explains to her how to use Upper Moon 4, Nakame, to fool Muzan into thinking all the Hashira were dead. Back to the fight, Tanjiro struggles to reach the others, while Muzan notices Yushiro behind Nakame and claims to kill him, so he continues controlling the Infinity Castle, trying to absorb his cells to take back control of Nakame. As both fight for control, the 3 Hashiras attack Muzan, distracting him, and this gives Yushiro a chance to regain control and turn the Infinity Castle against Muzan. But Muzan kills Nakame to stop them from using her powers. While Yushiro realizes the castle will collapse and everyone will be dead except Muzan, he keeps fighting to move everyone out safely. At that moment, Muzan keeps attacking, slashing Tanjiro and aiming to finish Mitsuri. But Tanjiro throws a dead swordsman's blade straight at Muzan's head, saving her and making Muzan angry for using these little annoying attacks. At last, thanks to Yushiro's effort, they escape the Infinity Castle and reach the surface alive, but the fight still doesn't end. After Tanjiro and the others escape the Infinity Castle and find themselves in a city, the Ubuyashiki leader says this place wasn't planned and asks how much time is left until dawn, and the answer was, there's still 1.5 long hours. Muzan, furious, breaks through the collapsing walls, knowing their plan to keep him until dawn and challenging them to do it if they can. And as he attacks, the Hashiras dodge his attacks. Obanai cut off his neck, but Muzan's head doesn't fall. He regenerates instantly. At that moment, the Hashiras panics as their plan to cut him into pieces fails if he can regenerate in an instant. As Muzan goes to finish them, swordsmen rush in to protect the Hashiras, taking the hits by their own bodies. They scream that it's their turn to protect those who always protected them. Just then, Tanjiro rushes to create a chance, but collapses, coughing blood, while Muzan reveals his blood is poison. Too much kills, and Tanjiro has it in him. As Tanjiro suffers on the ground, Muzan coldly declares that Kamado Tanjiro is dead. After Muzan tells the Hashiras that Kamado Tanjiro is dead, far away, Nezuko's father appears in her dream, telling her to wake up and that Tanjiro is in danger. Nezuko stands up and runs, with Urokodaki chasing after her. Kyojuro informs the Ubuyashiki boy, who panics and orders them to bring her back. But suddenly, his father's spirit appears, telling him to let her go. One of the girls asks who to send, but the boy starts crying, saying there's no need because his father told him so. Back to Nezuko, she sees her father again, guiding her as she gets separated from Urokodaki. Meanwhile, Tanjiro is still suffering. The Hashiras attack Muzan, but he slashes them back. He says the Demon Slayer marks only helped them stay alive this long. Just then, Kanroji collapses, as Muzan's blood starts working on her like a poison. He goes to finish her, but Himejima arrives protecting her. Muzan seems shocked, while Sanemi appears and slices him off. But Muzan heals again in an instant and attacks him, but Sanemi throws 4 bottles of oil and sets him on fire. Elsewhere, Murata carries Tanjiro away because Giyu asks him to save him. Tanjiro, fading, sees himself in his old clothes, holding an axe, just like the old days. As Tanjiro lies near death, his mind drifts into memories, while he sees Yoriichi, the original breath user, sitting in silence. Though Tanjiro can't speak, he watches. Yoriichi begins talking, recalling his past, his mother, his brother, and how his father wanted to separate them. He was an unwanted child because of his mark, so Yoriichi ran away, day after day, until he found a lonely girl named Uta, whose family had died. He waited beside her till sunset, then offered to stay with her. She was shocked, but accepted. They lived together, married, and she became pregnant. One day, he left to prepare for the birth, but on the way back, he helped an old man who wasn't doing well and wanted to travel 3 mountains because his son was on the verge of death, but he returned too late, as he finds out that Uta and their unborn child got killed. For 10 days, Yoriichi sat beside their bodies in silence. A swordsman found him, who was chasing the demon. That day, Yoriichi realized he couldn't ignore demons, so he joined the demon slayers and taught them breath techniques, and his brother joined too. They called it the Golden Age, and one night, Yoriichi faced Muzan, confident, standing beside a woman we now know as Tamayo. At that moment, Yoriichi knew he was born to defeat him. After Yoriichi faced Muzan, he sensed violence emanating from him, so he knew he had to defeat him. Muzan claimed he had no no interest in swordsmen who could use breathing techniques, and we all know he had already recruited Kokushibo. As Muzan attacked, Yoriichi dodged effortlessly and saw through his body, identifying 7 hearts and 5 brains. At that moment, Yoriichi perfected his 12 forms and created the 13th. He slashed Muzan in multiple places, unable to regenerate, holding his own head with his arm. Yoriichi knew then that his red blade had worked. Rather than finish him, Yoriichi asked Muzan what he thought life meant. Muzan then exploded into 1,800 pieces, and Yoriichi managed to slash 1,500 of them, but the vital parts escaped. Tamayo began to cry, wishing for Muzan's death. Yoriichi asked her to help him kill Muzan, and she accepted. After that, Yoriichi learned that his brother had become a demon. The demon slayers demanded he die in shame, but the young Ubuyashiki head stopped them. Yoriichi believed he was born to end Muzan, but he failed. A little girl tugged on his robes. Kamado asked him to lift her, and as he did, she smiled. Yoriichi began to cry, holding her in his arms. As Muzan's attacks grew fiercer, the Hashiras were pushed back, and Kanroji struggled the most against it. She couldn't see his strikes, dodging only by instinct and luck. But something felt wrong. Before she could react, Muzan slashed her from behind. At that moment, Obanai rushed to get her out of the fight as the others attacked Muzan all at once. Leaving her with a Kakushi to treat her wounds, Obanai turned away, while Kanroji cried out, begging to fight beside him, and asked him not to die. As Obanai ran back, thoughts filled his heart on how peaceful life could have been without demons, and how many people could have lived. We see his full face for the first time, the scar across his mouth exposed. He thought he first must die and swap his tainted body for a clean one. Only then he can tell her that he loves her, as he was planning to die while defeating Muzan, so he can be reborn in a clean body, as Obanai's full face is revealed.